we will hear from Pallavi. Pallavi was born and grew up in Hyderabad, India, and came to Britain to travel, broaden her horizons, get postgraduate training, and to have an adventure. She ended up staying and worked as a GP and got involved with various environment-related issues locally in her quote-unquote free time, finally joining the Green Party due to concerns over the environment and biodiversity decline. Pallavi was the Green Party parliamentary candidate for Southwest Norfolk in 2020 and 2024 and appointed Green Party Health and Social Care spokesperson in 2022. In this role, she became fully aware of the powerful trans lobby within the party. Expelled from the party in June of this year, following her attempts to get the party to move away from unscientific, misogynistic ideology and policies. Welcome, Pallavi.
Thank you so much, Cara. Thank you for having me.
So we'll just have a chat, everyone. Pallavi has not been asked to prepare a talk, so we thought we would just hear from her about her experiences. So can you please tell us a little bit about your professional background and how you got to be a spokesperson for the Green Party?
Sure. So I studied medicine. I was a doctor when I came to the UK, and then I did my postgraduate training in the UK, became a GP. But right from very early on in my life, I've always been interested in environmental things. I had a natural sort of concern for what I was seeing around me, which was basically destruction of nature. So I kind of informally supported lots of things, as soon as I had a bit of agency from my teenage years onwards. And it was, as I kind of became a mom, I kind of, it became more acute and more painful to me. And I started to become really worried about where the world was headed. So I started to become active in a very non-party political way. We formed a community group and we were doing like various things to raise awareness and try and bring the community together, go for kind of tree plantings and, low carbon ways of living. And eventually that then kind of my involvement increased and I joined the Green Party to kind of because I realized that the people in power weren't doing enough. We weren't moving fast enough. So that kind of drew me into party politics. And the Green Party was an obvious fit because I thought, okay, well, if anyone's going to do something about the environment, it's going to be them. So I joined the party being pretty blind to what had been going on. And for a couple of years, for a few years, I was fairly laid back member. I wasn't particularly active. I was a local member, just canvassing locally and stuff like that. It's only when I became party spokesperson and I became the party health spokesman in 22. And I mean, obviously I was a GP by then, well established within the NHS. I'd been a board member for the commissioning group. So I had lots of experience within healthcare, both as a provider, but also as a commissioner and, various aspects of it. So I guess I was a pretty natural selection for the spokesperson role. So, they took me and I really enjoyed it. I was helping develop party policy, but I could not ignore the fact that there was something very strange going on within the party where there was this extremely sort of powerful lobby of trans activists who were pushing for policies like, that. So, I went to a conference one year, I think it might have been 2023, where the deputy leader stood on stage and shouted, "Trans women are women, trans men are men." And it was this kind of, this rhetoric and this kind of unquestioning, you had to accept it to be within the party. There's this unwritten rule that dissent was not going to be allowed, that you weren't allowed to express an opinion on this. This was fact. This was it.
Let me ask you a question to clarify, and then we'll go on.
Yeah.
Before you joined the Green Party, were you aware of this issue, or were you sort of in the dark about it?
I was vaguely aware. I mean, obviously, being a GP, you had the odd patient who it was just beginning at that time. And I'm in a fairly rural kind of area in England. So we're not London, we're not at the head end of things, if you like. Things take a little while to reach us. So I was vaguely aware I might have had, and actually during my commissioning years, I did come across one patient who was particularly aggressive and verbally vicious, actually, to one of my colleagues because he wasn't getting his hormones from his GP. So I knew and I knew the medical side of things, but I don't think I'd quite twigged that this was such a big deal, and that actually so much of our political movements were captured by this ideology. I don't think I quite gathered that. Yeah.
Got it. Okay, so back to your presence at the Green Party conference in 2023, and people were yelling.
Yeah. So it was on stage, this guy was shouting and there was cheering and kind of general kind of feeling of, I don't know, victorious kind of celebration of this really sort of contrarian idea that trans women are women and trans men are men, which of course they're not. And I'm a GP, I've studied biology, I've studied medicine, I've studied the human body. There is absolutely no way that you can change somebody's sex. A man cannot ever become a woman. A woman can never become a man. And no matter what you do to it, you can pump them with hormones, operate on them, create false appendages and all sorts, but that it doesn't change biology. And it was just so disheartening and also kind of frightening actually to see that on stage and this general kind of atmosphere. I wasn't bold enough then to speak up, and I've been completely overwhelmed and overridden anyway. But what I did do was I took that away and I started to kind of quietly campaign behind the scenes. So there used to be this forum called Green Spaces within the party. And because I was spokesperson, I was kind of trying to be honorable and not say anything in public against party policy. So I held my tongue in public, didn't say, I think this is complete nonsense. But within party circles, I was speaking up, and I said, and then the CAS review happened. So Dr. Hilary Cass is a pediatrician who led a review, which was actually commissioned by the Conservative government. She completed the report after the elections, so it came in with a new government, was installed, and basically came out with some really conciliatory approaches towards transgender healthcare for children and teenagers, where she didn't even sort of say the whole thing was nonsense. What she did say was the evidence for any treatments for young people is non-existent or extremely poor. Trials have not been done properly. We don't know what the long-term effects of these so-called treatments are. And a lot of these children, more than 90% of them, have other problems, which are then causing them to believe that they're in the wrong body or whatever, and they need help with all of that. So they need help with their social situation. They might have been abused. They need help with their mental health. They might have neurodiversity issues. And she basically said they need holistic care. That's where the effort needs to be. And we need to pause, sort of this conveyor belt of somebody expressing a bit of gender confusion, and then straight away they put on this conveyor belt of, oh, here you go, have your example, have your sort of one off, sometimes it was as cursory as a 20-minute interview or meeting with a specialist, and that was it. Next thing you know, they were on hormones, and their gender dysphoria was being affirmed, this affirmed in quotation marks. And these were children. We're talking about children here, children who basically hadn't even grown. Some of them hadn't even reached puberty. They'd never experienced anything, like a normal bodily, a functioning adult body. So the villainy of this cannot be overstated, in my opinion. Children look up to us. Someone's got to be the adults in the room. You can't go around telling a child, if a child wants to put their hand in a fire, you don't say, oh, great, you've got this wish, let's help you do it. We just don't do that. We've got to be the adults. We've got to say to them, yep, you're having these feelings. It's okay. We can hold those feelings. You can change your dress, appearance, whatever else, but don't do anything permanent. Grow up first. Grow up. We will support you in every other way, give you the mental health support, social support, all the rest of it, help you to grow up. Let's have a conversation at a later date. That's all she was saying. And I was pushing really hard within the party to say, look, guys, we've got to support this because it's a really good review. She didn't go so far as to say trans medicine was a complete nonsense. She didn't say anything antagonistic like that. She was very careful in her language and very kind of aware of the politics and the very heated kind of social milieu in which she was kind of producing the report.
And
So,
there are people in the chat mentioning that Some people were very unhappy with her for not going that far.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. And she was very aware of that, so she was trying her best to be this kind of, to make everyone happy. She was conciliatory. She put out this thing, and really, you had to be a complete ideologue to disagree with what she was saying, just out and out there. So I was pushing really hard behind the scenes, saying to the party top brass, we've got to accept this. And every other political party had finally or reluctantly said, yeah, we'll go along with this, with this review, and we'll accept the recommendations. The Greens finally put out a really weak statement on social media supporting CAS review. It was a really weak statement, not at all something that, I would have wanted, but it was something. And it was something along the lines of, we accept it, we'll work with it. Within hours, it was taken down. The backlash was furious behind the scenes, and of course the one particular lobby group within the party is also called a special interest group, the LGBTQI plus group, were quite open about their opposition to the CAS review, and they were, basically spouting a statement every day about how terrible it was, and almost trying to make out that they were speaking on behalf of the party, which they weren't, of course. The party itself, though, withdrew their statement, and when I questioned it, they said we can't reach, we can't come together on this, so we're going to have to leave it. We're not going to have a statement. We're not going to have a position on this matter. So that was really frustrating. But then I carried on, challenging them behind the scenes, and I can only assume. And then we had the hustings. The general election happened in 24. Where I was sort of in hustings with several other candidates for all various political persuasions. And I was asked, what I thought about all the transphobia in society, about how terribly trans people are being treated. And as it happened, I think I was the last person to get asked that question, because the chair was trying to be fair and give us all turns. And they all said basically waffly, woolly things, which didn't say very much at all. And when it came to my turn, I said, I think it's overstated. I said, I don't think most people are transphobic or anything at all. I don't think they think about trans people. I can't remember the exact words of what I said, but I said it's overblown. I said it's a mischievous agenda that is trying to make out there's a problem when there isn't. People usually want to live and let live, and there isn't this great kind of animosity towards any group of people in British society. From where I'm sitting. And I talk to a lot of people every day. I wasn't saying that flippantly. I speak to hundreds of people, both professionally, both in my work as a GP, but also as a counsellor. So I'm a district counsellor, which involves coming in contact with lots of people. I go to parish council meetings. I meet people on the streets. They write to me. You're a very public figure locally, within the area. And I said, I don't see any hate. And then I went on to say that biology is a real thing, and nobody should try and make out that anyone's changing sex. I said that's not correct. So my goodness, nothing happened. Actually, a lot of good things happened. A lot of people came up to me afterwards, women, but also men, who said how relieved they were to hear a politician speak sense. They were so pleased. I gained a lot of followers and votes that day from that hustings. One woman actually volunteered to leaflet for me, and she leafleted her entire village for me on the back of that. So it was really nice. And for a couple of months I heard nothing, and then 2 days before national conference I got an email saying I'd been suspended from the party.
That was this year.
No, this was last year.
Okay.
24. So 2 days before conference, email says I've been suspended from the party immediately. It was a no fault suspension pending investigation. And, they were going to investigate it. But while I was suspended, I couldn't have anything to do with the party. I couldn't speak in an official capacity to party members. I couldn't be the spokesperson. I couldn't do any social media tweets or anything at all. And I couldn't attend local party gatherings, meetings rather, or anything, to do with the Green Party.
Had you been scheduled to speak at the conference?
No. As it happened, I was heavily involved with health policy, but as it happened, and they couldn't have known that, but I wasn't going to go to conference just because my son was going to university that weekend. And there was no way I was going to, he's my baby, my youngest, and there was no way I was going to miss that. So I was going to go to Bristol to be with him. So, but they didn't know that. And I think the timing was not a coincidence. They were so, so, so frightened that I would be at conference and I would be speaking to members and influencing them and speaking against all their ludicrous ideas. Um, so that's what happened. The suspension then, interestingly, just went on forever. So there was no investigation. Nobody ever came back to me. Nobody lifted the phone up to speak to me and ask for my version of things. All I got was, I was sent the complaint done by an anonymous complainant, had sent them what I'd said at the hustings. And on the basis of that, the regional council decided that they had to suspend me. There was no interview, no questioning, nothing official came from anyone. And then in December, my friend hosted a gathering, a Christmas gathering at his house, and phoned me to invite me to come along. Now, he's also the convener of the local Green Party. And when he rang me to invite me, I said, "You do realize I'm suspended. I'm supposed to go to party gatherings." He said, "No, this is not just a party gathering. It's also a personal one. It's at my house. I can invite who I choose to invite. Please come." And I'd known him for years, him and his wife. So I went along. And somebody then reported that I'd attended a party activity while suspended. And they used that as the reason to expel me permanently from the party 6 months later. So this is a story.
It's just amazing. How was the party? The Christmas party?
Weird, because I could see one or two people giving me shifty looks. Most of them really happy to see me. A lot of them had communicated with me in between saying they missed me, because I'm one of two councillors, from our local party. So, it's not as if it's got a huge presence. We were really trying to, ratchet up kind of support for the party and kind of, build it up to be a tour de force in the area. So I was very well known, and there was just such a sense of loss that I wasn't part of their meetings anymore. And then to be told, months later that they'd expelled me. Again, nobody ever spoke to me. In all this time, nobody from this party disciplinary committee or regional council or anyone officially picked up the phone to speak to me. Not once.
So, what have things been like since you've been expelled? Do you have any ability to appeal that decision, or would you even want to?
Well, that's the thing. I don't want to anymore. I kind of when they expelled me, and obviously, joining a political party is like taking a bus to your destination. You take the one that takes you closest to your destination. And when I joined the Green Party, I thought that's the one that's taking me closest to where I want to get to. But since being expelled and looking around and looking at what else was going on with them, I just find I have so many differences with them that I'm not interested anymore. I can't speak for them. I don't want to defend their policies anymore. I don't want to be associated with them. And they're digging their heels in more and more and more with this whole trans thing as well. So there's no integrity in the party from what I can see. And, I don't think I can change it. I tried. And I don't want to be part of a party that has no integrity, that doesn't actually care for the good of the people. And I'm actually afraid of them getting into positions of power because of the way that they have no interest in safeguarding, no interest in looking after children's health, or well-being, no acceptance of the truth that lives are being shattered by their trans ideology. I can't
Yeah,
have that on my conscience, and I don't want to have anything to do with them.
yeah. There's a question in the chat, which is, where do you think all this stuff came from? What's driving it?
So I thought about this, and people have said to me as well, there's this weird idea that it's all driven by the pharma lobby, the big pharmaceuticals, because they want to drive up sales of their hormones, and also driven by, evil doctors who want to basically make lots of money by doing all these fake surgeries and kind of, altering people's bodies. I'm not convinced. I think some of it may be coming from porn, actually. There's a, I think there's a huge number of people who get kicks out of AGPism. I don't know if that makes sense to anyone. It's autogynephilia, where men get high on presenting as women, behaving like women, and getting others to see them as women. I think it's actually the root of this. The evil is actually in a sort of a fetishism and porn. It comes from there, and I think pedophilia is part of it as well. So it's I think the core of it is actually very deep and evil. But of course, it then from there, I think it started from there, and then it spread into the social contagion, and it tapped into a lot of Western liberal kind of ideas of wanting to be seen to be kind and inclusive. You know, these are like the big buzzwords. So this then tapped into this guilt that a lot of Western societies, especially people on the left, feel for their colonial past, which are undoubtedly horrific. You know, countries have been horrible in the past to other countries and nations and peoples. So there's this kind of sort of idea that we have to be kind, and then they're kind of bending over backwards trying to be kind. And this then kind of all clarity goes out the window. And in this huge desire to be kind and inclusive, they're kind of then thinking this is the kind thing to do. I think this is sort of, yeah, my kind of jumbled understanding.
No, that's really great. We have the Honorable Jocelyn Scott here, so we'll be turning to her in a minute. But I'm just curious, as someone who has studied for 10 years, I've studied the links between pharma and medical supply companies and trans, and I've also studied the links between porn and trans, and I'm pretty familiar with all of this stuff. But I'm curious, in the past couple of years, did you sort of come to that analysis on your own, or did you come to that analysis doing research into some of the other people who have written about this stuff in the past?
I think research is a strong word. I spend a lot of time on Twitter, so I do read papers and stuff on there. That's not proper research, but you know, I'm definitely influenced by people that I've, you know, and I'd always try and find the sources of why people are saying what they're saying, look into things a little bit more. So yeah, it's a combination, I think.
Great. All right. Well, Pallavi, thank you so much for being here. A lot of people in the chat are expressing a lot of gratitude to you for taking the stand that you did and saying that you are the kind of calm, measured, intelligent woman that the Green Party should be sorry to have kicked out.
Thank you so much.